spa day. It's spa day! P&F on the scene. Gonna slather you with mud and make you feel like a queen. Get you sitting in a hot tub. You thinking this place is a hot steam, hot stones, hot water, hot wax. We're pumping cool new age music and help it relax.
Before you ask, yes, this is entirely real, and no, they have yet to have an official crossover with the Muppets. Though I suppose it could be arranged. Listen, if Muppets Mayhem returns for second season, they gotta show up in the season premiere. It's only fair. Despite its longevity and its rampant popularity well into the 2020s, Phineas and Ferb is still a relic of its time. One of the things that makes it hard for me to forget that fact would be its extensive line of merch. Back in the olden days, as a cartoon, you didn't need to do too much to get like a lunchbox or a Happy Meal line. You just kind of had to sit there and look pretty. And if the odds weren't against you, you'd get a whole lot more. Nowadays, even the biggest, baddest entities in the industry struggle to get like a graphic novel or something. But this show came out during a time where they didn't have those obstacles staring them in the face. And with this show coming out on the precipice of the internet age popping off, Disney had found 104 ways to make every penny they could off of this entity. But it wasn't just about selling the plastic. A lot of the time, it was about advertising how they wanted to sell the plastic. The various promotions and tie-ins that this show has spawned honestly could make for like an hour-long video. But for the sake of brevity, and my apparent sanity still remaining, I have decided to compile some of the best into a quick top 10 list. This show has definitely maintained its foothold in animation, even well into the pandemic era, but I do struggle to see a timeline where Disney would be trying to pull any of these stunts again, but that doesn't mean that we can't sit back and reminisce on what once was. These are the 10 twisted tie-ins of Phineas and Ferb. Starting us off at number 10, we have the serendipitous Listerine partnership. For all the time that the series has been merchandised to hell and back, Disney has been pretty protective of what they chose to advertise with it, albeit subtly speaking. This was never really the type of show that was going to appear on the Pop-Tarts or the cereal boxes or the Kid Cuisines or the Technicolor ketchup. It was always shit like apple slices and fruit snacks and juice. And this is arguably the most squeaky clean of them all. The Listerine Smart Rinse line of mouthwash was once adorned with the visage of the two stepbrothers. It seems like this was a big push for them. They sent these out to mommy bloggers and everything. Back in the day, it seems like it was released alongside the Rockin' and Rollin' album. And lo, they used certain songs from the album to push this product. But there was an additional surprise lying in wait. Peep the secret promotional code along with part of the UPC on the back, and you can get access to this funky little track.
Rush, rush, no need to rush, rush, just take your time. Up and down and side to side, both front and back, back keeps away plaque. Take care of your teeth, and they'll always be a wonderful sight.
Considering all the stuff that they normally sing about, this is pretty lame. However, the song itself is ruthlessly catchy. I've gotten it stuck in my head far too many times. It's just genuinely a well put together track. For number 9, we're swinging back into the world of television. Looking back at my notes, all I chose to write down were Latin American or Japanese promos, which, kind of shakes out. These two regions of the world in particular are well known for being big fans of the show. As such, they had a whole slew of really interesting or just slightly unhinged promotions for episodes and movies and things like that. I may or may not have talked about one of them the other day. There's one specific promo that I stumbled upon that I did want to mention. In 2014, Disney Channel Japan ushered in a marathon that I would loosely describe as the 35-hour Platypus Gourmet Extravaganza. A whole-ass marathon that is bookended by culinary concoctions inspired by the show. Now, this is an interesting enough idea, but then, of course, they made this little tweet to accompany it, which, honestly, that's your return of investment right there. There is nothing that will ever stick out more than this specific image. Enjoy your nightmares for tonight. For number 8, we've got the shark tail appearance. Obviously, most of the time, Dr. D would make for very interesting company, so Disney decided to stretch the limits of his appeal by putting him on Shark Tank to pitch a new project. Oh boy.
Hello, I'm Dr. Heinz Doofenshmirtz from Doofenshmirtz Evil Incorporated. I've got a jingle.
This was probably around the time when Doof's Daily Dirt was popping off, so the whole oversaturation piece may have started to kick in here.
Honey boo 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 who? Honey boo boo. Honey boo boo. What? Okay, never mind.
Frankly, I don't find it super impressive. I mean, Mark Cuban had a whole episode of Kick Buttowski to himself. You don't need this shit, and neither do I. But for real, I mean, this is an achievement. There is no other Disney cartoon that has had the courtesy of being given this opportunity. For number 7, we have the Animash, involving Dan, Swampy, 16 kids, and a fully animated short film. Essentially an officially sanctioned multi-animator project. They made this thing over the course of one day. Each animator was just given a character and a word, and together all of them made magic with it. I don't think there's enough projects like these out in the wild. This is obviously one of those experiences that can stick with a kid for a lifetime, but it also is well in keeping with the show's philosophy, its creative vision in a way. It also helps that the short is particularly funny. With the original being hosted on Disney's website, it's obviously not available anymore, but I'll point you over to the Phineas and Ferb wiki so you can get your fill of this amazing product. Number 6 would have to be the Isabella Award. I'm gonna have to jump back into my notes. I'm still surprised that this was even a thing that they did. But basically, Girl Scouts of the Philippines partnered up with Disney to offer a very specific title along with various types of merch. Obviously, in consideration for the namesake for the award, it was said to be awarded to the Scouts that encapsulated the spirit of this character. There's evidence of it being awarded in 2014 and 2015, and presumably no other time afterward. They were giving some of these out weeks before Last Day of Summer came. The awardees are one of several dozen kids in the entire world with this specific award. That has to mean something, I guess. To this day, I'm so bewildered by this idea. Obviously, this is kind of a cynical marketing opportunity. Like, it's obviously pretty appropriate given the context, but oh my god. Like, I could understand if, like, there was some money involved for some charities or something, but they were just like, here, take this certificate and move on with your life. But otherwise, it's definitely a bit self-indulgent, no? And obviously it raises the question of why this was never attempted in the States. This seems like a certified L for the promo team over here. I don't know exactly what was holding them back, but they do have time to learn. Number 5 is dedicated to many of the sports-related promotions that the show was involved in. Obviously, this show would be pretty palatable towards any types of sports-related collaborations. If memory serves, early into the show's lifespan, various songs and clips were already being utilized in various games and whatnot. The LA Dodgers in particular had a little tradition of asking celebrities and such to educate their audience on their rules of etiquette. And obviously the boys were asked to spit a few verses. Well, not explicitly speaking, but, you know, they did anyway.
Hey, we're here to sing the rules of etiquette, so all you Dodger fans at Dodger Stadium will not forget.
The demo of the song used to live on SoundCloud many, many years ago, wherein there were additional details supplied on production of the song and how it was inevitably presented when it was done. Apparently it was really hard to write, but I have to imagine being there on opening night was probably a lifetime experience, hands down. The year after that, the show was used to promote the Little League World Series with a retrofitted version of the theme song accompanying a music video. Coincidentally, the same year that dropped, the NHL had announced they made a deal with Disney to create a whole line of hockey-themed Phineas and Ferb merch. Honestly, for all the trouble that they were worth, these are probably some of the most interesting and creative promotions that they have ever done. Partially because it seems like the type of thing that would happen in a typical episode that probably influenced their decision to have the season 4 opener being headlined by Luke Robitaille. You can't tell me that that wasn't corporate synergy at its finest. At number 4, we have the Extreme Makeover Home Edition episode, aka that time where Phineas and Ferb helped shrink a house. So you already know the gist of this show, right? You've got an extraordinary person in need of a new home. Ty Pennington and the crew swoop in and they get the job done. Pretty simple, of course. In this particular episode, you have this little girl who saved her younger sister from getting hit by an oncoming car. She survives the accident, but not without a slew of complications, the most prominent of which being an amputated leg. Aside from not being ADA accessible, their house is pretty run down and probably cramped for somebody who would be needing a wheelchair and prosthetics and the like. So the crew come in, send him off to Disney World, and they get to work. Halfway through the episode, Ty contacts the family to let them know that they are going to take down the house. And with the help of a few kids from around the country, they have figured out exactly how they are going to do it. And this leads to Ty calling in the best of the best to supply this shrink ray.
Okay, so one of our online friends had an idea to demo the house by using a shrink ray. We figured you might be able to figure it out.
Sure thing, Ty. Always happy to help a fellow builder.
A couple minutes before he had called the family, there was a montage of them enjoying their time at Disney World, which wrapped up with the two girls meeting their favorite cartoon characters, of course. So it took on extra meaning to also have them destroy the house. You know, after reviewing the synopsis of the episode, I kind of feel like a dick for putting it at number 4. I just thought it was more technically impressive than the Shark Tank joint. And I mean, technically that one works smoother, but this one is way more complicated. And obviously it has the extra caveat of making a couple kids really happy. So I think compared to the next 3 entries, this one probably does the most objective amount of good. Though, of course, I never promised that this was going to be an altruistic experience. For number 3, we've got the mythical Slash guitar. So, Slash is a huge fan of this show. Yeah, that Slash. Guns N' Roses Slash. And around the time Across the Second Dimension was being produced, he had actually asked to be a part of it in some way. And what better way to integrate this legend into this franchise, but with a song? Within the final 2 minutes of broadcast versions of the movie, it is bookended by a music video featuring Phineas, Ferb, Perry, Second Dimension, Doof, Buford, and of course Slash singing about all the cool shit that they just experienced. Despite not being in the movie itself, Slash was a pretty big deal. In the context of this random cartoon movie for TV, this is kind of important. So to promote the movie, there were several contests that were afoot. One of them had offered a custom electric guitar decked out with some of your favorite characters from the movie. We don't know who won that contest, but we do know that there was perhaps a second guitar that Slash held on to that is currently for sale. I will not tell you where it is being sold, but it is pretty easy to find. Low-key, I kind of have the lofty dream of acquiring it at some point, but we're gonna have to see how all this shit goes. I'm not convinced that could happen, but I mean, you know. At number 2, we have the appearance in the 2011 Disney Christmas Parade.
We've got a special thrill coming up Main Street. This looks like a real party mobile. And at the wheel, it's Phineas and Ferb.
Now, having been just a few months out from the last entry, you can probably guess that the show was riding high at this point in time. It was not uncommon to see Christmas Vacation and maybe an accompanying 11-minute joint airing primetime on ABC. But this particular appearance in the parade was quite striking. It's literally just like a 2-minute intermission so that they can mime to Gitchy Gitchy Goo. And I mean, like, it's not explicitly tied to any particular product, I guess. But I think it means more than it's letting on. The fact that this humble little Disney TV cartoon was allowed to be a part of this crazy tradition is insane. These characters were allowed to stand side by side with a lot of the other greats of Disney canon. These are opportunities that were never afforded to Kim or Scrooge or any of these other characters, no matter how much they deserved them at the time. But it was something that was possible for these characters. There is something a bit profound in that. Before we move on to number 1, there are plenty of honorable mentions, which we will not be going over today, because there are way too many that could be counted. Instead, I would rather you recount your favorite tie-in down below in the comments, because there are literally dozens. So without further ado, let's just move into the number 1 twisted Phineas and Ferb tie-in for this particular list. And at number 1, we have Platypus Day festivities, but more specifically, the pair of music videos that exist for it.
Are you ready?
The genesis of this holiday existing is not as big or as epic as some of the previous entries. Doesn't mean as much, didn't last as long, perhaps. But similar to the previous entry, it really did speak to the totality of this series. Like, it meant more than, like, marathons or live appearances or promotions. Because these 2 music videos in particular, they did emphasize the disparity in its power. It's literally just the glut of Disney Channel stars dancing to these goofy-ass songs. And, like, that shit's kind of powerful, low-key. They have never done anything like this since, and while this would be more fitting for Big City Greens than whatever this is supposed to be, it is probably one of the craziest moments in Disney Channel history. You know, it's not too difficult to speak to the impact of Hannah Montana, Wizards, Sweet Life, any of the big players from that era that really made that channel Disney Channel specifically. And it is so easy to overlook the cartoons that came out right before or during. Because as fun as American Dragon is, they weren't selling out like millions of venues and shit. This show, as weird and nonconformist as it is, was able to sit at the table. It seems like in some way they considered this equal to all the other shows and entities and stars that they had in their roster. And again, it's just not really done. It really only is expressed in moments like these, where you can see the lengths that they're willing to go to hawk the next album. I think what I'm trying to say is, the fact that this goofy kids network managed to corral several dozen actors and make them dance on screen not once, but twice in the name of a fictional teal cartoon platypus really speaks to the legacy of Phineas and Ferb in a way that none of these other things could. And that is why it is at the top of this list. I hope you learned something today. I hope you have walked away with some ideas of your own about how the next few years are going to shake out, possibly. But that pretty much covers it for today. I will see you tomorrow. Hopefully.